I want to speak to you today about four things: the Cultural Recovery Fund for the Arts, the Welsh Government's guidelines for resuming activity, our investment review, and our future approach to lottery funding. But before I do, one other thing first. I'm very aware that many of you are wrestling with every day some difficult and challenging and palatable choices. The kind of choices that no one ever thought that we'd have to face. Whether you're a freelancer, an arts worker, or a manager, there are issues wherever you turn. Where's the next work coming from? When can we reopen? Can we reopen at all? And how can we keep our organisation going when the furloughing support comes to an end? There are no easy answers to any of this, but do keep in touch with us, even if it's just to let off a bit of steam. Conversations might be a little tricky at times because of the difficult issues and the anxieties that you're facing. But please do believe me when I say that we're very firmly on your side and trying to do the best we can to get everybody through this wretched pandemic. So today we open for applications to our Cultural Recovery Fund. It's taken us a little longer to get to this position than we would have wanted. But from the moment that the money was confirmed by the Welsh Government, we've worked round the clock to get the fund defined and open for business today. So, a few headlines. This is a fund for arts organisations based in Wales, both commercial and not-for-profit, who've been affected by COVID-19 and who are trying to keep themselves going until the end of March 2021 or until they can resume activity. There are two strands to the fund: a £25.5 million revenue allocation and £2 million to help with the small-scale capital costs that you might be facing as you try and reopen. The fund overall is jointly managed with the Welsh Government, so there are certain areas of activity that they'll be handling rather than us. These are funding for individuals, freelance practitioners and sole traders, festivals and events, grassroots music venues, bands, comedy venues, publishing, film and TV and the creative industries, and also independent cinemas, although we will support arts organisations for whom presenting film is an important but minor part of what they do within their overall programme. Support for these activities will be funded through other strands of the Cultural Recovery Fund, managed directly by the Welsh Government, and Government will be making its own announcements over the next couple of weeks about how all of this is going to work. The fund is primarily a rescue and recovery package, but in return for the financial support, you'll be expected to sign up to something new called a cultural contract. The development of this cultural contract is designed to encourage you to adapt to new commitments that will ensure that public investment is deployed with a social purpose. This will build on the Welsh Government's existing economic contract. So you'll be asked to commit to fair pay, maximising opportunities for freelance employment. You'll be asked to explain how in the future you'll be diversifying your governance and your workforce. And you'll also need to tell us what steps you'll be taking to minimise the environmental impact of your activities in the future. There are 3 funding thresholds that you can apply against. The level of funding that you can apply for depends on the final level of turnover as expressed in your 2018-19 annual accounts. So if your total turnover was £750,000 or under, you can apply for up to £100,000. If your turnover was between £750,001 and £2 million, you can apply for up to £350,000. And finally, if your turnover was above £2 million, you can apply for up to £3 million worth of support. The deadline for applications is Wednesday, the 9th of September, and we'll make announcements before the end of October on who will be awarded support. As I always do, I'd urge you not to apply for this funding if you really don't need to. This absolutely isn't an opportunity for you to rebuild those rainy day reserves. Many of you have been magnanimous in adhering previously to this advice. Thank you. There might be a time in the future when you need support, and there's more likelihood that we'll be able to support you if everyone continues to be as disciplined as they've been so far. Next, I want to talk briefly about the Welsh Government's guidance on resuming activity across the performing arts, rehearsing, training, performing. Many of you helped at very short notice to test and to contribute to the government's draft guidance. I'm sure that this guidance, which I'm told will be available in the next couple of weeks, will be all the better for your input and expertise. Of course, the question that everyone's asking is, when can we reopen or resume our activities? It's a vital question, but not one which this guidance can answer. Answers to that question will depend on the periodic announcements by the First Minister, as various aspects of our social, cultural and economic lives are reopened after the lockdown. And this will be driven, obviously, by the health and scientific advice. In the meantime, the guidance, when it's published, will set out many of the practical considerations that you'll need to work through to ensure that your activities are COVID safe. These are detailed and comprehensive, and it's very important that they're followed so that we can avoid the danger and the risk of a flare-up or a second wave of the virus. Plans for our investment review were completely poleaxed by COVID-19. Had we proceeded as planned, you'd all have spent the last 3 or 4 months writing and preparing applications. It was right that we deferred and paused the process, but it does create something of a conundrum for us. An important aspect of previous investment reviews has been our assessment of organisations' past performance alongside their plans for the future. With most organisations unable to provide any activity in the past year, assessing past performance becomes rather limited. Indeed, though, some are pressing for us to defer the investment review for a further year. However, on the other side, there are others, not in the portfolio, who are no less keen for their opportunity to show what they can do as part of the investment review, and are anxious to have the opportunity to stake their claim for support. Our council meeting in early September will be discussing what to do. Council has to feel confident that it's supporting the right organisations. But who are the right organisations as we adjust to the new ways of working that COVID-19 is likely to force on us as a legacy for the longer term? We know things have to change, but how? Working out what this all means will be difficult. However, Council will be having a first crack at it this next month, after which we'll want to talk and discuss ideas and proposals with you around a possible way forward. Discussion and consultation will also underpin how we decide to use the National Lottery funding that's left to us in the latter part of this financial year. As you know, one half of the available funds was repurposed earlier in the year to provide our first tranche of COVID-19 response funds. However, we now need to decide how we invest productively the funds that remain in the current financial year alongside the Cultural Recovery Fund. The answer to this will depend to a large extent on what is possible by way of activity, either for reasons of social distancing or because restructure and restrictions means that staging some kinds of activity become difficult to justify financially. We also know that there are many things that we have to do differently in the future, especially in responding to the very real challenges presented to us by Black Lives Matter and We Shall Not Be Removed. Now isn't the moment to drop the ball on this, so we'll be testing ideas with you over the next few weeks. Many of you have been kind enough to thank us for what we've been doing. I'm really grateful. These small moments of acknowledgement do give us all a tremendous fillip. I'm convinced that a new future is waiting for us, and I'm equally convinced that it can be an exciting and engaging future. But getting there will require every bit of our resilience, our good humour, our grace under pressure, and the kindness that we can show to others. My very best wishes to you all.